And my name is Rodolfo Bejarano. I am a pre-sales regional director for Suse. I've been with the company for about 12 years. So let's start there. What is Suse and what do we do? We actually run under three major pillars. Number one, enterprise Linux, which is the bread and butter of our company. We are an open source company for everything we do. So that's the base. The second one is ECM, Enterprise Container Management. We purchased a company about 2 years ago now called Rancher, and Rancher Labs is now part of Suse. Rancher Labs allows you to do hybrid, multi-cloud, Kubernetes management. So whether it's on Azure, on Google, on AWS, on-prem, you name it, Rancher can manage it from a centralized location. So that's the other one. And the third pillar, which is, again, Terrence mentioned buzzwords, edge is another big buzzword that we're getting into. Not only for really small devices, like we are seeing people deploy little Raspberry Pis to monitor humidity, for example. But there's folks that are deploying Kubernetes as well as at the edge, and we have a solution that targets that. So again, if anything, as Terrence mentioned as well, I'm not in love with the voice, my voice. So if you have questions and we can talk, that's better as well. So feel free to stop me at any point. So in essence, this is what Suse does. The next one is probably an eye chart for you, but I'll just start by saying this is the Linux core layer. We call this the Suse cake, if you will. It's all layered up there. So we do a lot of work with SAP. Like I mentioned, for the edge, we have something called SLE Micro. We do a lot of work on HPC, high performance computing. We have a solution, Suse Manager, that actually manages about a dozen Linux distributions. So again, it's at our core to be very open, and whatever you guys are working with, we'll probably support and work with. As you'll see on the next slide, there's a bunch of names out here and different projects. Again, the core of what we do is open source. So all of these are open source projects. The ones on the green here is what we provide support for, and you can get directly from us. The others are third parties that will integrate in our Suse Rancher ready to deploy within our stack. But again, we don't try to force people into a stack. Whatever works for you, in essence, we'll work with. There is one that I forgot to mention in the previous slide, which is NewVector. NewVector is a container security platform that we actually acquired last year. It was a closed source proprietary product that as of February of this year, we've open sourced and shared back with the community. So like everything we do, it's free. What you pay for us and large customers like yourselves pay us is for us to provide support and patches for those vulnerabilities or exposures. So we'll dig into NewVector today just because containers and we see the challenge and part of those challenges is the rapid growth and deployments of containers. So we see that as a big challenge, where right now your traditional firewalls or things of that nature are really not going to be enough. They're not going to cut it. So we've come up with this additional solution, which is a deep and wide solution for you to not only be able to secure your production environment, but now hackers are not only targeting your production, they're targeting your entire pipeline. So it needs to start with your pipeline, exactly, where you build your container images. So that's where we need to start. And NuVector provides that capability of you scanning your container images as well as the packages that you have on top for vulnerabilities. And we're able to remediate those on the fly. But as well, we also are able to lock down from a networking perspective with the use of something called zero trust. So if you basically trust nothing, it's a more secure way, and we can just basically tell it what we will be able to accept. So it's focused in two parts, as I mentioned. One is the supply chain, which is tied strictly to that initial, those initial steps of creating your container images and putting in your code. NuVector can go ahead and scan all of those in terms of vulnerabilities, compliance, and admission control, which is strictly related to what I just mentioned of zero trust. With admission controls, you actually are allowing only what you need and everything else is blocked. But we also have a secondary part to this, which is the runtime security. So once your workloads do make it to production, we're able to run scans of your running applications and threat-based controls. This means that if there's a vulnerability or if in the network there's something that's not allowed, it'll actually block it and let you know that there's been an attempt of an attack of some sort. So going back, this is basically just the same thing, just broken down of what we can do. So it allows you to do the scanning on the actual builds or containers. It can do registry scans. So all of your different container images that you have in your registry, they can be scanned for vulnerabilities and remediation. CIS benchmarks and custom audits can be done as well. It'll run compliance scans as well for GDPR in Europe and things of that nature, as well as the runtime, which I mentioned before are related to admission controls, zero trust. There's a layer 7 firewall or web application firewall that is right now is definitely something new because of the way containers do their pipeline in between and whatnot. So it's different than your average containers, but it also allows you to do something else, which is create security policies as code. And it allows you, or it actually comes built in with security automation. So it, based on the things that you allow, it learns from what should be good traffic and not, if you will. So it has that behavioral learning as well in terms of creating security policies on your behalf. I'm going really quick here. Any questions? Have I lost everybody thus far? I just have a smaller slot than Terence's, so I'm trying to just get through it. All right. This is a very unique thing for NuVector, and like I mentioned, it's a networking diagram to where you see the interaction in between pods. If you're familiar with Kubernetes, containers now go into pods, so your applications are in pods. So what I'm showing right now is a Kubernetes cluster, and you can see interaction in between two separate clusters through the cloud there, and I can see exactly what ports are being requested from what app to what app through the network, so north to south as well, and again, based on those zero trust policies, it'll only allow traffic that you know is what you need and nothing else. So this is a unique one for NuVector. I will go into a little bit of a use case, which is Log4j. How many of you had a little bit of a headache with Log4j? No? Well, I'm glad. A lot of people did, and were scrambling to resolve the Log4j vulnerability. Our customers that are using NuVector for their container platforms were completely secure. Again, because at the time of the discovery of the vulnerability, we were able to scan all of their containers, registries, etc. at build time, fix those, as well as blocking any of those executions of that code throughout the entire pipeline. So in terms of day zero, before CVE, we already had those zero trust network rules in there that were blocking that execution of that code to be done, as well as day one plus, we're able to implement, like I mentioned, those web application firewalls that will block that traffic. So cloud native security should not be an afterthought. These are my closing remarks here. You should always stay ahead of it. It should not be assumed to be built into the cloud. You do need to take steps in order for that to be completely locked down and secured. It must be automated, where I mentioned that behaviorally, based on what is allowed, it can grant access to things that are allowed and not. And finally, it must enforce a zero trust model. Just to give you a picture of where Suse plays in what industries, I decided to throw this slide in. We've got over 15,000 customers worldwide that use our technologies, whether it's on the Linux only, or if they're going with containers and the container security. So again, you can see a large number of familiar names, maybe including one of your own companies there. So, and with that, I am ready for questions if you have them, or to pass the baton to our next presenter.